So it's interesting. And I'm going to use our business again as a comp. So you were given a shot at FS1 and you have succeeded. But it does matter that you've had success as your first big syndicated cable opportunity. If you would have failed, there's a chance you would have never gotten a second opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Same for me at ESPN Radio. If I tank, I go back to doing local radio. And there's a big gap between local and where I've ascended to. So Mac Jones, I disagree with Eric Mangini on this. So Belichick is still pissed off that Mac Jones sought help outside of the building last year when they gave him Joe Judge as a quarterback coach and Matt Patricia as a coordinator. And I thought, had I gone to ESPN? Because in the NFL, Drew Brees is an outlier. You bomb in the first one, star quarterback, you don't get a second chance mostly.
Right.
So, and this isn't Deshaun Watson, who did star in Houston, had personal issues.
Yep.
But we knew he could play. So had I gone to ESPN, replacing Tony Kornheiser, and they would have given me a sales guy to help with content, not taking it seriously, and I bitched to my boss and he wouldn't listen, my only out would have been to leak it to the press what a shit show management was. So I told Mangini, I understand there's this sense that, well, Mac Jones, he's not allowed at this point in his career. And my takeaway is timeout, timeout, timeout. His career is 3 years. You F it up. He's going to be viewed as insignificant and people will never give him a franchise job again. So they literally, Belichick takes this big, wild, zany swing. Mac's like, the hell you doing? I'm a quarterback. Nobody else has to deal with this. And he starts leaking shit, right? He's losing the locker room.
Yep.
So the Mac Jones situation's interesting, is that I thought of my ESPN days. I thought, the hell do you do if this iconic coach is effing you?
Yeah, okay. So I hear you. Let me give the counterpoint to that. Because you're right that if you had failed at ESPN, your career goes differently or whatever. But I also know enough about the business and know enough of where you were when you got that job. You were not quite Mac Jones. You were closer at that point to Joe Burrow. You were going to get a huge opportunity somewhere and had massive success at a bunch of places. Listen, I said I'm not trying to be humble here because I said for years before you knew me that I was the second best radio guy in the country. I was 27 years old saying second only to you. So I always believed I was extraordinary, but I was just kind of doing okay ratings-wise in Houston when I got the shot on at FS1. I was not the first overall pick, just like Mac wasn't. And so if you are Bill Belichick in this example, and I am Mac Jones, and you say, Colin Cowherd, successful for 20 years, I want you to come work with me. Trust me, Nick. I know it might not make a lot of sense to you, but I need you to follow this. And my first year doing it, I overachieved. And my second year, you're like, I want to try some new things. And I'm out there trademarking my name, doing the gritty after segments. And I'm like, man, fuck this old man. He doesn't know anything. I got my career to think about. You might be like, your career exists because of me, asshole. What are you doing? And when I put you on the bench and I had someone else host and Zappy, all of it, our ratings went up. So maybe you need to go work somewhere else and see how that works for you. So I understand that Mac maybe was frustrated. I also understand Belichick may be thinking, buddy, you can't throw the ball 35 yards in the air. I can't trust you to throw a Hail Mary. So did I maybe make a mistake with having the special teams coach and the astrophysicist be your offensive coordinator? Sure. Do I need you constantly showing up my coaches, throwing things, yelling at people when you have not been part of the solution? And the thing that really hurts Mac, and this is the point I keep making on the show, the Patriots had 2 games last year where they scored 28 points. They were the 2 Bailey Zappi starts. It's not like those games Josh McDaniels came back for a cameo appearance. It was the same staff. It was the same everything. And so I also think Belichick knows, well, he should know, even if Mac reaches his full potential, will there be a day in his life Mac Jones is better than Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Lamar if he stays, Trevor Lawrence? Now we're at 6 in his conference. Deshaun, if Deshaun ever comes back, who knows? Comes back to where he was. If there's Russell Wilson, there's Aaron Rodgers, there's Tua, guys who all their upside that they have shown in their careers are high. There is a possibility his best case scenario is 8th best quarterback in his own conference. I'd be looking for an upgrade. You know what I mean? I would, if I were Bill, and maybe Mac wants it. I don't think Mac is a special talent. And so I could be wrong on that. I've never watched him and been like, wow, that guy's got it. I've never thought that.
That was good pushback. You probably won that one. That was good.
Well, that's just because I called you Belichick and I was Mac Jones. That's easy to win the debates. I just play to people's ego. I never lose them. Peter King said that he believes that the Ravens would just give you Lamar straight up for the 4th pick. Would you do that if you were Indy?
Just a 4 pick for Lamar Jackson. Yes, I would.
The number 4 overall pick this year's draft. You give them that, and you got to give Lamar a deal. Peter King says he thinks the Ravens would say yes to that. They wouldn't try to match. They wouldn't. 4th overall pick, Lamar straight up.
Yes,
if I'm
I would.
I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yes, because I think in the NFC he would dominate. In the AFC, he'll make you very viable, and I also think that Indy's in a situation now where at best they're going to get the 3rd best quarterback unless somebody leaps them in a bad quarterback class, or Lamar Jackson. And you can take a deep breath and say, we're off this damn treadmill. So I think the Lamar conversation has been so, I don't know that any conversation has ever frustrated me more, because it seems like, to me, obvious where he is as a player. He is clearly not a top 5 quarterback in football. Just clearly not. And I understand he won a unanimous MVP. Get it. I understand that some of the folks will be like, here are just his passing stats, not his rushing stats. I'm like, honestly, I could give a shit. I watch the games. I know he's not a great passer. I know he's not. I know there are, Mahomes, Burrow, Trevor, Herbert, Allen, those 5 guys are better than him. I understand Justin Herbert doesn't. If Justin Herbert were, it's like, hey, you can have him for 2 first-round picks, somebody would have offered him a contract by now. I know this to be true, right? There's those 5 guys. I also know that right now, if you're actually ranking quarterbacks going down the list, Dak Prescott's like 10th. And Dak, I think Lamar's better than Dak. You might say Dak's better than Lamar. Whatever it is, at worst, Lamar's the 10th best quarterback. So he's not one of the absolute no-brainers. He's still better than 20 starters. So, let's all take a deep breath. Teams are so desperate for quarterbacks. You give Daniel Jones $40 million a year for 4 years. So is he perfect? No. Is he hurting himself by not having an agent? I think unquestionably yes. Is it frustrating that he hasn't, passing wise, he's actually awesome at some of the really hard stuff. It's the layups that he's not great at, has never gotten great at, and it's frustrating. Sure. But does it still seem baffling to me that a team like Detroit isn't like, we damn near made the playoffs with Jared Goff. We have extra first-round picks. We're in the soft conference in a division that next year the most established quarterback is going to be Kirk Cousins. Yeah, we'll pay Lamar Jackson and maybe go to the Super Bowl, even though he's not perfect. I do think there's something else. So we both admit his unorthodox personal representation hurts and that the injuries really hurt. There is a third thing that an executive in the league told me about a year ago, is that if you bring him in, you better go find a backup that works for him if he gets hurt. And it's a different offense than your typical offense. So you've got to make some real staff changes. And if he's a franchise guy, you got to bring in a whole new group. And it's almost like in our space. There's people that do play-by-play, and there's people that are analysts, and then there's guys like you and I that are opinionists and generalists. Well, we don't work doing games or hosting a show, right? You have to bring in people who create topics for you and I. So Lamar is unique in that he's not your classic drop back, but he's a better thrower than you think. He does have an injury issue, one of them kind of freaky in the pocket, but he's got such a dynamic style of which you should absolutely lean into, that there is okay, if we bring him in an Indy, okay, Shane Steichen, what do you have to do to your staff to do this? And so now I'm not saying there aren't a lot of things you can't do with Lamar you can do with other quarterbacks, but he is such, I talked to Sean Payton about Russell Wilson when he was not the Broncos coach. And I said, what would you do? And he said, I'd get him back to playing basketball on grass. He goes, Russell's at his best playing basketball on grass. Well, that's not Drew Brees. So You're literally bringing in staff and people and personnel that work with basketball on grass. So Lamar's that to I would say, an even hyper version of that. So he's a very, I guess what I'm saying is the downside to unique is that you have to build people to support unique. And it's not as easy as conventional.
None of it's that's why, listen, do I think the league as a whole doesn't want to do guaranteed deals? Obviously. Do I think the owners might be, at the owners meetings asking around, you're not doing guaranteed. We're not going down there. The Browns screwed us. We're not going further. Sure. So do I think there is that level of collusion? Sure. But as I said before, if Trevor Lawrence were done with his contract, franchise tagged, and for the whole league, it was like Trevor was like, hey, I want a fully guaranteed deal, and it's going to cost 2 first-round picks, 5 of these teams would have said, I don't care who gets mad at me. I'm doing it.